Cataclysmic just got a massive buff, and it makes warlocks officially the highest damaging class inside Destiny 2. Way back before the final shape dropped, we got a TWAB that went over ability tuning. And the Cataclysmic Nova Bomb was announced to have an increase of how many Seekers came out of it, from 4 to 6. And this was a pretty decent buff. But now, along with Warlocks being able to gain an exotic class item with Star Eaters on it, this will give them a 70% increase to that damage as well. And with fragments such as Facet of Courage being able to boost that super for an additional 10%, makes this Prismatic Warlock build an insane damage dealer. But with the rotation I will be teaching you today, you will be able to deal over 4.7 million damage. Quite literally, because though I got my damage up to 4.7 million, I did not have the God Roll class item that can push your damage even higher. But real quick, I just want to give a fat thank you to all of you that have subscribed to the channel. We just hit 10,000 on YouTube, and I could not thank you enough. Now for all the people that aren't subscribed, if you find yourself enjoying this video, consider sticking around. It's free and you can always unsubscribe later. But now, let's get into the build. Starting off with the super, of course it's going to be the Cataclysmic Nova Bomb. This is the highest damaging super in the game that is not a roaming super, of course. I should be showing you guys a damage test that I did with just the Nova Bomb and maybe a couple Kovostov rounds or so on and so forth. And I was able to do 1.3 million damage on Greg. So this thing is an absolute monster in the field. Moving on, for our melee, I do have the Strand Melee. For multiple reasons, Unravel is a very great way for tick damage, on top of the fact that this is considered a darkness debuff, which will come in later for our fragments such as Facet of Courage. But moving on to the grenade, I went with Vortex Grenade. This is not required at all actually. You can run things like Heal Nade and still get the benefits from Facet of Dominance through the Transcendence Grenade, for it does void damage and stasis damage. And with that idea, when it comes to a boss damage phase, having that 15% weaken on demand is perfectly fine without having to go with Vortex Grenade. But it is just an option that I went with. And moving on to our aspects, we have Bleak Watcher. Now, Bleak Watcher is phenomenal in mid-game content. When I mean mid-game, I mean just like the mechanic phase to a boss encounter or any GM known to man. If there are ads to be cleared, Bleak Watcher will control them for you. Now, I'm gonna also say that this one is not exactly needed. You can swap Bleak Watcher out for Helion, for it will actually do increased damage for when that ignition gets set off, pushing your damage even further if you decide to go with this route. Now, for an aspect that I do deem just absolutely necessary is Feed the Void. For Warlocks, this aspect is more than just for survivability. It's a great way to replenish your grenade, and on the low end, this is a 15% energy gain per red bar enemy defeated. The percentage gains do get higher the more higher tier enemy you defeat, but at its base, it is already 5% better than any demolitionist weapon. Now moving on to the fragments, of course I already went over Facet of Dominance, able to apply weaken to a boss for 15%. And if you are going with the Vortex Grenade, this is a 15% weaken on demand. Up next is Facet of Courage, for that extra 10% light-based ability damage on enemies affected by a darkness debuff. This is through either your stasis turret or strand melee. Next we have Facet of Grace. This is to achieve Transcendence ridiculously quick. Facet of Command for the auto reloading for when the stasis turret or prismatic grenade freezes the target or boss. And lastly, Facet of Purpose, just for that extra survivability. Since we are going with the Cataclysmic Super, this means that you will receive a Void Overshield every time you pick up an Orb of Power. Now, moving over to the weapons, I want to go over Kovostov. You either love it or you hate it in this community, I guess. But to take a note out of my friend Toidy's book, Kovostov paired with Facet of Grace is able to fill your Transcendence energy from empty to full with as little as 9 seconds. And Transcendence is a 5% increase to your weapon damage. So you're gonna want it for every boss damage phase. Up next, for the energy slots, I would say go with anything other than a rocket sidearm, or if you do that, you will just be doing more damage. You can use a sniper, a double fire grenade launcher, a fusion rifle, whatever you want just to proc off your bait and switch for the heavy weapon, of course. But I did 4.7 million while still on a rocket sidearm. So just know that your damage could probably be better. Now for the heavy, of course, we're going back to our basics here. It's going to be an Envious bait and switch grenade launcher. You can do it with either Edge Transit or you can do it with Cataphract. They're both adaptive frames, which is the highest damaging grenade launcher in Destiny right now. And they both have the god roll of having Envious and Bait and Switch. Now, moving it on over to the mods, of course, they're all absolutely mid, but I'm going to go over the ones that are very important nonetheless. So copy it here right now, for we're about to just get into the more important ones. So for the first one on the helmet would just be a kinetic siphon. You need orbs for Star Eaters, you need orbs for Kovostov to be goated as hell, and you need orbs for your surges. So kinetic siphon with Kovostov, you are big chillin'. Next, we're going to go down to the arms, and because we get our grenade back so frequently with Devour, Firepower gives you orbs, and it fills the whole list up. We've already been over it. Lastly, it's just going to be your Void Weapon Surges or your Strand Weapon Surges if you're going the Cataphract route. Now for my class item, I'm having a Star Eaters, which is the more important part to have, and an Inmost Light. This is not the God Roll. And we will be going over the God Roll class item after I show you guys this damage phase. Before we get into the damage phase, I want to teach you the basics first on how to do this rotation. First up, you're going to start off by charging your stasis turret and throwing that out onto the field. This is going to freeze the target periodically, therefore activating Facetive Command for your weapons to be reloaded, and it is a darkness-based debuff. After that, you do want to shoot your Strand melee. Not only is it a darkness-based debuff as well, but it unravels the target, which is just awesome for tick damage. Then you're going to want to pop Transcendence. Throw your Transcendence grenade to apply the weaken effect, and after all that's done, you're going to want to throw your super out onto the field. And now that that's all said and done, it's time to start your bait and switch rotation to just full auto your grenade launcher into the boss. Now, take a look at his damage. Holy shit. Thank you. I definitely needed that.
You know how that shit go.
Yes, sir.
Factor. Why did you do that?
Leave me alone. Yeah, fuck it, I'm gonna leave the circle. Hit him with a grenade. Yeah, that was definitely fatter damage right there. That's crazy.
That's good. That's good, bro. Only 100k less than last. That was really good.
Yeah, we'll take those. Now with this said, my exotic class item was a Star Eater Scales and Inmost Light roll. And the God roll for DPS would be Star Eater Scales and Necrotic Grip. I know there's a lot of talk about Star Eaters and Apotheosis, and though that's not exactly a bad roll whatsoever, it is not helping you in damage while you are firing your weapons. The tick damage being able to be quickly applied and reapplied during damage would just be the icing on the cake in terms of total and DPS reasons. And in all honesty, once I unlock this very specific role, I will be never taking it off of my Warlock. Now, if you guys have enjoyed this video, consider supporting me by hitting the subscribe button. And thank you all for 10,000 subscribers, a huge milestone for a nobody like me. Now take care and peace.